everybody's heard of Sweet Baby Inc. In the early part of 2024, it seemed like all my tabs were filled with suggestions related to this, and as someone involved in the entertainment industry, my curiosity was piqued, especially as it was becoming somewhat irritating to see it everywhere I turned. So driven by intense curiosity, I decided to investigate further. After ensuring it wasn't a scam, I visited the website and here's what it presented. Sweet Baby Inc.
Founded in 2018, Sweet Baby Inc. is a narrative development and consultation studio based in Montreal and working around the globe. Our mission is to tell better and more empathetic stories while diversifying and enriching the video games industry. We aim to make games more engaging, more fun, more meaningful, and more inclusive for everyone.
Here's me thinking that was already a thing. So you might be looking at this website or looking at what they have here, and on the surface, it might not seem problematic at all. But I've grown skeptical of companies that claim diversity as the primary focus in their art or consumer products. This skepticism stems from the fact that numerous organizations and studios profess to diversify their audience, but it's often a mere facade. They misuse the concept of diversity, feigning support while tokenizing, marginalizing various ethnicities and genders, and vilifying those with diverse beliefs.
We need ideas for more diversity in Hollywood. Only reboots. That's all we're good at. What do we got? Yes, Tom, I was thinking we reboot The Color Purple with an all-Asian cast. Yes, that's perfect. What's next? I think the next Spider-Man should be a poor, marginalized, pansexual Muslim. That is fantastic. Yes, the LGBT community would love it. What do we have next? How about a live-action Toy Story movie with an all-female cast, a woman of every color, standing up against the patriarchy because they're tired of being manhandled by a bigoted, sexist little boy. Okay, yeah, that's great. We can also get the Me Too movement behind this. Or maybe a Forrest Gump remake without the mentally disabled slander because it's insensitive and no one of a marginalized group is the butt of a joke. Okay, that's awesome. Boys in the Hood remake, but the main character is gay. I'll do you one better. A Titanic remake, but the main characters are transgender. Oh my god, yes, but wait. Let's not just stop there. How about everyone is transgendered? Even the boat itself.
Diversity, once a wholesome concept, has now been weaponized against the very fandoms of these franchises. So every time I encounter this, a small red flag starts rearing its head and flapping itself vigorously in my mind. Now further down on the website, under the services section, it reads,
We believe you need diverse voices to solve diverse problems. Sweet Baby Incorporated provides narrative consultation at any stage of development, boasting a talented team with vetted industry experience to best bring your story to life.
This sounds very vague and honestly very culty. What does that even mean? The outreach portion further states,
Skill and marginalized talent can change this industry if given the proper support. We want to provide this through our outreach programs.
At first glance, again, this might not appear problematic, and it shouldn't be. There are countless talented individuals from all walks of life that have suckled from all types of tits. However, as I've previously mentioned, studios and organizations often profess to support underrepresented groups, yet they overlook the individual's true passion and who they really are. It's akin to being offered a job not for my skills, but because I'm a woman and not a native-born American. Meanwhile, a more talented male who was born in the USA faces discrimination because he's white and a man. This gives me the impression that I was chosen not for my abilities, but for my appearance and background, and or gender. When discussions veer into topics like this, it's common for some to quickly label it as racism. However, consider visiting a country like Uganda, where the vast majority of the peoples is dark skin, primarily Bantu. Highlighting this seems almost unnecessary because in many parts of the world, they're not focusing on racial differences, but instead diversity is recognized through various religions, tribes, regional identities, social classes, and more. In contrast, first world areas like the United States or other Western countries seem to amplify issues of race to an extent that might appear excessive to those from places where discussions like that are not as prevalent. But anyway, imagine being in Uganda, where dark skin is the norm, and finding yourself as a minority due to your very light skin. Perhaps you face significant challenges or discrimination, mirroring the unfortunate historical events experienced by minorities in the United States. In this hypothetical scenario, Uganda has evolved, embracing the principle that anyone who grows up in Uganda is considered Ugandan, regardless of their racial or ethnic background. This shift towards inclusivity and unity reflects a significant progress in acknowledging and valuing everybody's identity and experiences within the whole nation. And in this scenario, individuals who have white pale skin are provided with greater representation in the media and the entertainment, which aligns with the notion that if they constitute a mere 1% of the population, it's logical for the majority of cultural outputs to mirror the demographic majority. However, imagine a situation where individuals with white skin begin to be selected for roles and opportunities based purely on their skin color without consideration of their abilities or qualifications. Additionally, there's a troubling narrative emerging where dark-skinned Ugandans, particularly men, are being stigmatized and labeled negatively. This dynamic creates this really complex issue where the intention to balance representation can actually backfire and lead to preferential treatment that overlooks merit and fosters dissent and division, and even more so and dangerously resentment among different groups within the society. And then imagine that dark-skinned Ugandan men voice their concerns about these practices, labeling them as discriminatory and arguing that true diversity should encompass collaborative representation. It should be everybody, not just one specific group. They're paradoxically accused of being discriminatory themselves and basically told to shut up. The rationale given is that since they have historically dominated the entertainment industry, it's only fair to give white-skinned Ugandans their turn in the spotlight, and basically mostly only them. This approach is initially accepted until it begins to influence long-standing franchises known for featuring dark-skinned Ugandan male characters, as well as video games and other entertainment mediums where such characters are portrayed as heroes, or in a positive light. The shift gradually leads to a troubling perception where the mere portrayal of a dark-skinned Ugandan man in a heroic light is deemed offensive or contrary to the ideals of diversity. The situation escalates into a broader effect where the issue transcends national boundaries, whether a dark-skinned character hails from Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, or etc. The underlying sentiment becomes problematic. Despite the rich diversity among these nations and their peoples, the mere presence of dark skin is dismissed as lacking diversity. This perspective, even if originally rooted in this desire to address societal injustices and to promote equality, understandably generates significant resentment from Ugandans, or dark-skinned Ugandans. Many would sympathize with the majority of people in Uganda who are preferring to distance themselves from those who are practicing these discriminatory behaviors or who prioritize skin color over the quality of storytelling and character development. In an ironic turn of events, these practices actually come full circle, echoing the discriminatory behaviors historically observed in the US, where choices in storytelling and casting were made based on racial preference, often selecting white individuals even when a black actor would be more suitable for the story being told, or choosing the most light-skinned dark person they could find that looked closer to what the majority of America was. Now hold that hypothetical scenario in your head, and let's go back to the whole Sweet Baby Inc. situation. That hypothetical is the reason people are very wary of stuff like that. So observers within the gaming community have pointed out that games associated with Sweet Baby Inc. often seem to lack passion, they flop, they contain really strange propaganda, or come across as inauthentic. And this perception is attributed to the overtly preachy messages or tokenized inclusion elements that turn off players of every and any ethnicity. But that's not what I'm really here to talk about. I want to discuss the issue of companies, organizations, or studios taking action against fans or consumers who decide to boycott or refrain from spending money on products they don't support. It's important to know that there are specific groups or communities often formed around content warnings in video games or movies. These groups are permitted to operate without harassment, providing a space for individuals who wish to make informed decisions about their entertainment consumption. This includes being aware of potential triggers such as violence, animal harm, consumption of meat, etc. in these products, so they can choose not to support or expose themselves to such content. I mean, we have rating systems for that very reason as well. This isn't a new concept, it is something that has existed for a very long time. Before every game, before every movie, it lets you know, especially for parents, viewer discretion is advised. These are the following things that you might see in this presentation. And you can actually go to websites now where you can compile all of these so you can be aware before going into it what it consists of. An example of such a resource is the website Does the Dog Die? Die. While this may seem comparatively mild, it operates on the same principle. It offers both an app and a website where in the app's description, it details its purpose and functionality. It reads, "Does seeing a dog die on screen leave you an emotional wreck for weeks? Does the Dog Die saves you from emotional turmoil by exposing which triggers are in a movie, TV show, or books. Not just dogs. 100+ trigger categories, including clowns, jump scares, kid deaths, parent deaths, LGBT deaths, bad jokes, needles, suicide, car crashes, torture, strobe effects, bugs, plane crashes, and the list goes on and on. I really love this, and it's quite commendable that individuals have the agency to decide where they allocate their money or what content they expose themselves to, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with exercising this choice. The creators behind the website Does the Dog Die are not advocating for the shutdown of games or movies. They're not coming after them and saying that they shouldn't be published. Instead, they provide a valuable service by informing users about specific content within movies or games. Like I said, something that kind of already existed, but this is just more descriptive. This doesn't necessarily mean that once people are aware of certain elements in the content, such as the death of a dog, they're going to choose to avoid it. I personally used the Does the Dog Die website to find out if a dog dies in a movie, and based on community comments regarding the nature of the scene, whether it's graphic or merely implied, I decide if I'm comfortable watching it. And I'm so glad that we have this. I really wish I had done my due diligence when it came to Midnight Mass, because it had the worst dog death graphic scene in the history of anything I've ever seen, to the point where it feels like the people who were portraying this got off on it. I know that's probably not true, and they were probably trying to utilize the emotions of the audience to imagine how horrible that must have been and how evil the person who poisoned the dog was. I'm sorry, I don't even care if I spoil it, because honestly, fuck that show. But the scene went on so long to the point where it's like you were watching a torture video. It was unnecessary. It was grossly unnecessary and cruel. I believe the impact of distressing content can differ significantly between reading a book and watching it unfold in a visual medium. While some readers might struggle with disturbing scenes in literature, books offer sort of an option to skip parts that might be upsetting, because you start reading it and you're like, However, when such scenes are depicted visually, it's much more challenging to avoid or prepare for them in advance. You just don't know what's coming. It's not like you're reading one word at a time. That scene in that stupid show traumatized me, and I was bawling and depressed for 3 days. Now the minute I see a dog on screen, I pause the movie, or I look it up ahead of time to make sure that I know whether or not the dog survives, and I can breathe a sigh of relief if I find out that the dog lives, even if the dog gets hurt. If I know the dog doesn't die, but I still want to watch the movie, people in the community are gracious enough to put the timestamps so I can cover my eyes and ears, or if I can't pause it, or just skip past it. Since it doesn't bother my husband as much, if we're watching it together, he'll tell me to close my eyes and he'll watch through the scene and tell me when it's over. Similar to what happened in Wheel of Time with Hopper's death. And the thing is, I knew he was gonna die because they made him the cutest little puppy ever. And the way that my husband described what was going on, he didn't go too descriptive with it, but he mentioned one thing and I just kept thinking to myself, why? Why was that necessary to portray that? You could have done it off screen. It's just weird. Look, I have a very strong stomach and mind, but dogs dying on screen, like, that's my kryptonite. Same thing with kitties. But I think it hits me harder with dogs because I have dogs right now and they're my children. Similarly, there are individuals who are particularly sensitive to scenes that involve harm to human children, possibly because they have children themselves or because they experienced something really traumatic in their childhood. So it's understandable why there would be creation for services that offer content warnings or filters. It's a way of acknowledging and accommodating the diverse experiences and sensitivities of the audience, so that people can make informed decisions about what they choose to watch or avoid. By the way, you can donate to doesthedogdie.com and become a supporter for $2.50 a month or $25 for the year. No, I'm not sponsored by them, but this website has been a lifesaver for me. I know I sound like a snowflake, and in this regard I completely am, but I'm very sensitive and emotional when it comes to such things. And every time I witness something like that, it stays with me for a very long time, and I feel like I have emotional PTSD from it. So yes, please support them. Now going back to the Sweet Baby Inc. situation. You may be wondering, what does any of this have to do with it? Well, I've noted before that many gamers have observed that Sweet Baby Inc. is often associated with games that are either mediocre or carry content that doesn't resonate with them. In response, a community on Steam named Sweet Baby Inc. Detected was established. This group's purpose is to inform gamers about games linked to Sweet Baby Inc., allowing these gamers or potential buyers to make an informed decision about whether they wish to engage with those games. This is reminiscent of the actions taken by many transgender individuals and their allies regarding Hogwarts Legacy, choosing not to support the game due to its association with a figure they find problematic, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with making such a choice. However, the issue arises when individuals decide to boycott or not support something, but then proceed to harass or attack those who choose to buy it or engage with it, especially when their reason lies in just merely not activism, but enjoying a product separate from the artist or someone who just happens to be affiliated with the artist, by proxy of creating a title for a game that is under the same franchise name. It's no different than a vegan person deciding that they don't want to be vegan for honorable reasons, but then vilifying or harassing people who are not vegan. This is barbaric, ancient, religious witch hunting behavior. And it came out that employees of Sweet Baby Inc. tweeted a call to action for people to report this group, mainly for providing the service of letting people know that Sweet Baby Inc. is tied to certain games, which is something that Sweet Baby Inc. already does. I mean, they list on their website games that they have been involved with. It's already readily available.
Oh, you are a special kind of bitch.
The actions of Sweet Baby Inc.'s employees targeting the founder of the group or disparaging users for their participation in it are wild. When individuals or companies attempt to coerce others into compliance via bullying over issues that are unjustified and unethical, it usually backfires and ends up accelerating their own decline and demise. All it serves to do is draw more attention to the controversy and their role within it. This whole situation escalating out of control due to the company targeting everybody and acting like little tantrum-throwing 3-year-olds has piqued my interest to investigate further. And had it not been for them being so aggressive, I would have probably remained completely unaware of the company and its actions. I would have still been oblivious to whatever the hell Sweet Baby is. Numerous YouTubers have delved into the detailed history of the saga, but the key lesson here mirrors this broader trend that we've seen with many movie studios and celebrities. And it's attempting to demonize consumers or potential buyers who might not share your views or ideologies, and so we're gonna headhunt you, and that strategy always fails. Engaging in harassment over disagreements verges on censorship. People have the right to be informed about the entities behind the products that they purchase for whatever reason that might be. Whether someone is an ardent environmentalist seeking to minimize their ecological footprint, or someone who chooses not to support products from certain countries due to disagreements with those nations' governmental policies, the principle remains the same. Consumers deserve transparency and the freedom to make informed choices based on their values and beliefs. I even knew a man who did not like German cars because he had a problem with the whole ancient regime situation and he was Jewish. Be it far from me to tell him to mind his mouth and to guilt him into buying German cars as a Jewish man. And it's not about judging his stance as right or wrong. He's an old man, or he was, I doubt he's alive now, but rather understanding and respecting his choice to direct his spending away from products he has specific reservations about, which in this case was German cars. Similar thing happened with one of my professors, a Chinese man. I was his favorite student, and we had a great relationship. And as soon as I brought up Nintendo or anything that happened to come from Japan, he got viscerally angry and took it very personally. And as a matter of fact, it got him in a bad mood there and after, and I couldn't even speak to him. Now, I get the history between China and Japan, and as nice as a man he was, he just didn't like Japanese people. Now, while I don't agree with that, it's his prerogative whether or not he chooses to spend his money on Japanese products or companies tied to Japan. Who am I to force him or vilify him for choosing not to spend his money on a product that hails from another company that he either doesn't agree with or just has reservations about? Imagine if all the movie studios came out and tried to shut down websites like Does the Dog Die? Imagine the outrage. And do you right now feel as though that would be utterly ridiculous and out of line for them to do. Well, it's the same thing with Sweet Baby Inc. It's the same thing with the many journalists who criticize fans for boycotting movies or shows due to displeasing aspects or ideologies they don't agree with. It's rare for individuals to boycott something without a significant reason. If a piece of entertainment allows people to immerse themselves in joy, they're typically more than willing to invest in it. However, if consumers take issue with specific content within a video game, like a distressing portrayal of an animal's death or the mishandling of a character, it is their right to respond accordingly regardless of whether others share their viewpoint. As a creator who crafts stories for a niche audience, particularly where two fantasy creature characters are romantically paired, understanding and respecting the diverse preferences and the sensitivities of your audience is crucial, and I understand that. And a lot of people said that they wanted that, and so I gave that to them. And there are a sect of people who hate me for that, like vitriolically hate me on a personal level, which is weird behavior. I don't try to shut those people up because that's stupid. What I do find crosses the line is when they come over to my page or try to harass me or those specific fans on my page to try and demonize us for something that is not that serious. And it's no different than what the community did in regards to Hogwarts Legacy. You don't like it, you want to bitch about it, that's fine. But it does cross a line when you border harassment and come over to someone and then try to shame them over and over again because they are making something that you don't like. It's disgusting cult behavior that likely stems from deep-seated insecurity. If someone doesn't enjoy something, or they don't want something and you vilify them for it or try to shove it down their throat, that's the four-letter word, and that is a synonym for being molested. How sad of a person and how broken do you have to be to have such an issue with people choosing to avoid you? It's bizarre behavior, and I would say it's criminal when you cross the lines into harassing someone for such a reason. Someone doesn't want to buy your game? Do you believe it's a good game? You believe that a lot of people are still buying it? To hell with those people who don't want to. Keep selling your game, make more games, and keep it pushing. If they're not coming out and slandering you or doing anything criminal, then there's no reason for you as a big corporation to take it so personally to the point where you would rally people against this person who really isn't doing anything and trying to get them shut down or censored. Now, I will concede if people are harassing the Sweet Baby employees personally, then I would understand the employees trying to defend themselves. However, if the community is merely curating game titles that make people aware that Sweet Baby Inc. is tied to those games, which is something, as I've said, Sweet Baby Inc. already does, I don't see what's the issue. It's a very sad time when corporations are so fickle because people are choosing not to spend their money on them, and instead of making something that can stand the test of time and win people over, they cry about it and wonder why people aren't using their hard-earned money, that's actually pretty difficult to come by now, to support the mediocre product. Thanks so much for watching. This has been Ultiori. You ask, we answer.